Hey, hi, hello, friend. So today we continue our conversation with Allyn. We talk about how the nuclear family versus a village has shaped our society, as well as how we relate to others. And we also chatted about polyamory in the Bible. So, without further ado, here's part 2. Welcome to season 7 of the Queer Consciousness podcast. I'm Kit Sargent, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Jess Grace Garcia, and my pronouns are they, them. We're just humans wanting to share the lived experience of other humans.
This season, we're talking about all things sex. We want to have deep, heart-led conversations as we unpack what sex means to us and why it's so important to talk about it.
This is a season of unlearning, relearning, and sharing about a topic that is still considered taboo.
Because at the end of the day, we are all spiritual, sexual beings having a human experience, walking each other home.
That's not a way I would ever ask Erica to interact with my body, because I think that would go against, not just make her uncomfortable, but go against her own sexuality in a way that doesn't quite make sense. Like, for example, and this is more comedic, I said, like, they've been calling me daddy to the cats for a long time. And I would love a daddy in the bedroom. I would love a moment for a daddy in the bedroom. But that is not super comfy for Jana. She just lost her dad 2 years ago, and she's from the South. And so, like, that's like, it's just not, it's not going to happen. And Erica's like, I'll call you daddy. I was like, it doesn't
will you,
work.
though?
She's like, I will, but I'm like, but it doesn't work. And I feel like this is when I feel just the slightest bit autistic. Just a little bit.
Well, like, you can feel the energy behind it.
Yes. Like, I do. I think it's an energy thing, but also there's just this, like,
it's like you might be saying it with
work.
your mouth, but your brain isn't engaging the intention correctly.
And that's when, like, the whole tonality comes in, where you're like, I can read your tone. I fully understand what you are trying to say, but you are not saying it well.
Yeah. 100%. There was, I think there was a moment a couple of weeks ago, I just remembered, where Jana was like, it was right before her arm surgery, and we were trying to get all the hair things done at home before all of a sudden there was no extra arm for help. And she was doing something with, I think, coloring Erica's hair, and Erica was like, acting up for some reason. And I just, like, kind of, like, put her in her place playfully, and she was like, okay, daddy. And I was like, oh, that was actually kind of nice.
It's like, wait, you engaged it.
Wait,
you engaged the proper intention. Wait, do it again.
The crazy thing is, though, is now that I actually know Erica and Jenna, I can totally see this entire interaction and just be like, yes.
What I love, because I think Jana was just, like, right behind her. There was some sort of, like, Jana was definitely here, and Jana's eyebrow just went, like, it's just like, I heard that. That sounded like what you might have liked to hear. Like, that seemed nice. But yeah, my favorite, this is totally a side note, but one of my favorite things about Jana and Erica's interactions is that even though we've been together 5 years, because the sex isn't as frequent, when Erica does choose to engage in, like, a sexual way, and it doesn't start with me, or I didn't get things moving quickly enough, and she's, like, giving energy to Jana turns into, like, a teenager. Like, she's just, like, so, like, all of a sudden she's like, hee, like, it's just like, it's so funny and so cute at the same time. She's just, like, total, like, puddle, like, right away. It's like Erica's this, like, Xena warrior princess energy or something, like, and Jana's just like, hi, you're pretty. It's the best.
So cute. Wow.
It's the best to watch. So Allyn, I'm curious about the polyamory aspect of your world. Like, is there any polyamory aspect of your world, or are you in kind of like a monogamous scenario, or identify as poly? Like, I just know we've talked about it. So I'm just curious.
I mean, that's, I think, kind of a conversation I'm still having with myself a little bit. Because there's part of what got me thinking about it, and part of the conversations that we've had is there's like so much about both, I think, asexual experiences, but like more specifically aromantic experiences and polyamorous experiences that kind of like break down the idea of all of your needs have to be fulfilled by one person, and all of your intimacy has to come from one person.
Yeah.
Instead of looking to different relationships for the different needs that you have. So I've been just listening to conversations, hearing people talk about their experiences, trying to be like a little more self-reflective about whether or not I feel like poly is a label that works for me.
Totally.
And I think where I'm at right now is that it doesn't really matter enough to me in terms of like I feel like my autism brain would like put me in too many like, okay, so if I'm poly, I have to do blah 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 blah, like start doing this kind of communication and like that kind of thing, and then that might kind of put my relationships in an uncomfortable spot because there are people that maybe haven't done the self work or have the same perspective on polyamory that I do, that would then make them feel like I'm asking them something that they aren't in, like that they don't want to reciprocate, or that I'm not actually asking them.
Like it's easier just to be like, you're my best friend, and this is what our best friendship looks like.
Yeah.
Or you're my, like you're a part of my village or a part of my family.
Or like I'm still looking for the right words to understand what I get out of a particular relationship. So I think I'm still kind of like figuring that out on my end. I think having that perspective is very helpful, but I don't know that my experience reflects a poly experience.
Totally.
For now, even though I know there are like some people who are aro that also use the poly identity, that it doesn't feel like it's working for me right now, but maybe that will change in the future. I'm open to it changing.
I totally get that. It's interesting because I watched a video last night from a creator that I enjoy. Oh goodness, I wish I could remember what country she's from. I think it's called Decolonizing Love.
And she's
And
Canadian.
is she Canadian? Okay. I know she lives in Canada, but I just don't remember like where she immigrated from.
Oh, she's from. She said she's.
Is she just French Canadian?
I also follow her as well, and she's like, I've lived in like 15 different countries. I'm from
That's
all
what I
over.
thought.
I'm
Yeah.
currently based in Canada, so I consider myself Canadian. My anchor partner is Canadian.
That's why I was having a hard time placing it. So normally I'm pretty good at remembering. But yeah, she was talking about, and I was just so thankful for this lens because it made a lot of things make sense, which was decentering whiteness when it comes to like our identity as poly, because she was just talking about how like one of the reasons why she started the account, one of the reasons why she keeps pushing, Black creators who are poly, is because the way that they think around polyamory is so different than the way that white folks do, and a lot of that comes down to the way that sexual liberation and privilege play a part in those spaces. And I've always been, like I hadn't put that language, I'd use different language to describe why I don't really engage in poly spaces. Like I don't go and find poly community. I don't go and find, like I find queer community and I find trans community, and then I find ethically non-monogamous folks in those groups. But it is often the folks that I'm relating to that are not thinking of polyamory as a sexual, like sex isn't at the top of that conversation.
It's
It is-
polyamory, it's not polysexuality.
Exactly. And like so many people, the first thing they go to when they find out you're poly is they think sex. I mean, like I was even having a conversation.
So you want a threesome?
Yeah. Or even I was having a really good conversation this weekend with someone who asked consent before asking the question around, you know, do you have a biblical defense for polyamory? And I was like, you know what? I haven't had this conversation in a long time. Let's do it. One of the things that they said was they used the example of like, also trigger warning for anyone that's ex-evangelical or, you know, like feels triggered by this
warning,
stuff.
clobber passages,
Yeah,
Paulian theology.
Yeah. There's going to be a moment where I talk about the church and the relationship. So, you know, like she kind of used the relationship of God and the church and the and you know, family as like this is the defense of monogamy. And I was like, okay, well, I was just kind of getting into the conversation and I was like, well, what about the Trinity? Because we had literally just talked about the Trinity. And she was like, well, they're not in a sexual relationship with each other. I was like, God's not in a sexual relationship with the church. And she was like, boom, valid. And I was like, also, why is the first thing you said was sexual relationship? Like, you're making a big assumption about that relationship.
Right.
Like, I was, so that was a total tangent that I was like, this is not the direction we need to go, but we need to come back here. Right. And so, like, I tried my best to get back to that because I was like, no, let's keep going in this direction. But it was kind of interesting because like that's been the part that's been cycling in my head since that conversation. It's just I keep thinking about the fact that like there's that big assumption of romantic or whatever, because like I would say that I'm in a polycule with like or even an extension of a polycule with my best friend and his two partners. We always do like Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that together, and like he's the quote unquote mistress that if he calls, I'm there. We joke. That's the joke. He's trans, and for some reason he's still totally fine with being called mistress. My spouse is calling the mistress because I will literally go to him in a minute if he needs it. And like, so we just have like a really, honestly, like when you think about it, it's a village. And it feels the most like a polycule to me, even though we're not all engaging in sex, because sex is not the center of that connection or the relationship. Intimacy is definitely an important factor. Trust, loyalty, all of the things that make community.
Yeah.
And community is at the center of that. And so she talks about that in it's a necessity that community and some of the like the ways in which we engage in polyamory as people, like I'm biracial, so but like as people of color is more sometimes comes from like those of us that have nothing, and we create something together out of necessity.
I mean, you get the very like to speak to the like the very white perspective of how familial units have changed. You have like the very specific 1950s Red Scare, establishment of the nuclear family. How do we differentiate ourselves from the communists? And that's when the idea of generational households started to break down. And you stopped looking to the village and you started looking towards the nuclear family.
Yes.
And that's also when, if I'm remembering correctly, like the under God got added to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
So it was specifically done. And marketing just took it and ran with it. And now we have all of these signals of you only get your intimacy from the immediate people close to you. And you're not supposed to look to anybody else around you because that makes you a communist. And now that the Cold War is not as present, I don't want to say over because there's still tensions, but like people have forgotten that this was a specifically intentional message that was crafted for the American public.
Yes. Now it's just,
and now we have to
this is what's right
unpack
or
it in a
wrong.
way.
Yeah, continue. Feel free. I'm sorry.
I mean, that was, I think, like the conclusion of it. But like this was something that I talked about in I gave a breakout session at QCF a couple of years ago. That was called Queerly Beloved, and it was talking about like ace and aromantic perspectives on relationships. And that was something that I spoke to, is that like this is where, especially as white people, we get a lot of our messaging about our relationships from the secular realm. Not even to like mention all of the messaging that we get from our churches, or like for me, I come from an evangelical background, so like all of the purity culture baggage that comes along with it. But even from like the secular realm, if you're thinking about like Valentine's Day and the marketing that we experience from that, ties back to this very colonialist type of perspective of we are differentiating ourselves from this group that we have perceived as other. And this is what makes us better than them.
Yes.
I mean, it's not even necessarily just colonialism. It's very much so puritanical as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, because, I mean, when the Puritans came over, they didn't necessarily want to come and colonize the New World. They wanted to have religious freedom from the oppression of the Church of England. And so once they realized that they were in a foreign land where they were othered because of the people that they were meeting, and they realized that the way that the indigenous people of America organized their own tribes and how they interacted with other tribes, how they interacted with their own families, how they interacted just as people groups was so very different from how they were raised and what they believed and their entire ethics and morals on how humans should behave. That's where I think that was the dividing factor. Is Puritans came over and were like, oh, you guys have a very matriarchal, very communal, very family-centered, very interdependent relationships with each other. No. Just no, that's wrong, because that's not what we do. We have a very hyper-independent, hyper-individualistic, very, like, to your point, Allyn, of nuclear family. Everything has to remain centered because we're the only people that we can rely on, we can control, specifically control, not necessarily rely on, but we are the only people that we can control. Whereas when you have a general understanding and a genuine understanding of the fact that in order for everyone to survive, everyone has to survive. So when we are all working together, we are all pulling our weight, we are all doing the things that we need to do to make our lives better. And then you have these people that come in and are like, you can only rely on yourself, you can only rely on God, and you can only rely on your family. And whatever you guys are doing, making sure that everyone is taken care of in their own way and you accept everyone for who they are. Why? And we need to get back to that, for one. So put indigenous people in charge, just point blank, period. And the thing that I have started to learn is by unpacking all of the religious upbringings that I have had and that people around me have had and that people who have had great influence on my life have had, I'm like, oh, that's why sexual liberation is so foundationally bad to you people. Because you realize that when everyone is happy, everyone is happy, everyone is thriving, not just in survival mode. And we can all contribute to society to bring about the evolution that we all want. Because everyone is contributing. No one is in control. And that is incredibly fearful for so many people because they're like, well, then who's in charge? Everybody is, you dingbat. Everybody is in charge because everybody has a vested interest in the well-being of everyone else. Because if everyone else is invested in everyone else, everyone is then also invested in you, which means that you are living to your highest potential. You are being able to have the best relationships that you want to have. You are able to contribute in a way that you actually want to contribute because everyone is then contributing back to you. You are loving people how you can be loved, and you are also loving them how they need to be loved.
But then how do I know that I'm better than everyone?
Because you're not, and that's the thing. And for me, and this is something that I have had to like really unpack for myself, is I'm like, I like to say that I am poly in my relationships, but monogamous in my sexual relationships because of the fact that because I am ace, I'm like, I don't need to have multiple sexual partners because of the fact that like, realistically, if I get sex once a month, great. Yeah. I love this for me. I got it because I remembered that it existed. There's the ADHD of it. I'm like, I don't remember sex exists on a regular basis. So I remembered that it existed and I got some. Hell yeah. Absolutely. Let's do this. And so like, yeah, I could only like, and the thing is I'm like, I don't need that from multiple people. If one person is like, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm like, yes, I got it. And I remembered to do it as well. So there's that. But also, I'm like, no, I want people who are genuinely invested in who I am as a person. I want them to be emotionally intimate with me. I want them to be mentally intimate with me. I want them to be wanting me in the way that they want to want me. I don't want to be like, the only way you can want me is if you want to see me naked. Why? Why does that have to be the default?
Everything else matters so much more than the thing, which I think is such a beautiful full circle moment to my initial answer. Which is that the sex is secondary. Like my being sexually intimate with Vaughn happened because of everything else.
Yes.
Because of the other intimacy that we had, that I felt comfortable exploring that with them. Because I'm very much of like a similar mind to Kit. It's like, I don't need to be sexually intimate with multiple people. I feel very fulfilled in the intimacy that I have. And honestly, it was kind of an accident. I don't, it's the amount of emotional labor it would take to get me to feel comfortable exploring that with someone else is not worth how long it would take to get there. Like I feel so much more engaged in just let's explore these other aspects of intimacy. I want to get to know you. I want to like really dig deep and like connect with you on a personal level, and being able to physically touch you in a specifically intimate way is not something that matters to me to have. I already have that. I didn't even necessarily know that was a thing that I was going to want to have. I will tell people that at the time where Vaughn and I started dating, I had just gotten to the point where I was so comfortable being ace that I'm like, I could spend the rest of my life by myself. It would be fine. And then Vaughn and I met, and it was like, okay, this is the relationship I have now. And it works, and it's fine, and it's great, and I love it. But I don't need to have sex as part of a relationship to feel like I have a deep sense of intimacy with somebody.
It's so interesting to hear your story, and then to go back to me explaining some of those like balances that were created for me in my sexual need, but also in my identity in having both of these sexual partners kind of play different roles. And then hearing you say, well, I don't really need more than one sexual partner because of the reduced need for sex.
My needs are neither complex nor very present.
Right, but it doesn't mean that you don't need deep connection with more than one person.
Yeah.
And I think like that's been the priority for me as well. Like, why I was able to be so patient in my discovery of myself and my identity as poly, and in like Erica needing the time she needed to kind of like come to terms with this might be a thing we try.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why that was possible was because sex was not, that type of intimacy was not the priority, although it was higher than your priority.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the priority. Connection is.
Yeah.
And wanting to honor people. Like, I think even if Jana and I had not been able to be sexually intimate, if we had been, I mean, it would have been really hard. But if we were just deeply connected and had to stay long distance and all of that, I'd still want to have named her more than a close friend. I would have wanted to give her a title that felt appropriate to how I felt about her.
Yeah.
And that would have still required some work.
Yeah.
I think within my marriage.
That's one thing that I think people struggle to understand when I try to talk about my relationship with Vaughn. Because like Vaughn is obviously a very important person in my life. And like we've struggled to kind of put the right language to what that relationship is. But for so many people who aren't seeing their relationships with nuance when it comes to like intimacy and closeness, would look at our relationship and just be like, well, why isn't Vaughn just your best friend? I'm like, he's not. That's not the language that works for us. That's not what describes the investment that we have in each other.
Totally.
And the connection that we have with each other. That's not. There is not a word that exists in the English language yet to describe the intentional, intimate connection that we have and the degree to which we share our lives as a result.
Yes. It makes me second guess those moments when we see things on media or whatever and we go, gay. That's gay.
It's like two sides of the same coin. It's like, yes, but also let's unpack that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's like,
and then we circle back around to gay.
Gay.
Right,
That's gay.
You're like, that's just okay.
Guys, you know what would fix this? Polyamory. You know what would fix this? You know what would fix this? Communication.
Yeah.
You know what would fix this? Getting rid of homophobia within yourself, internalized homophobia. Maybe just like recognize that you might have some chemistry. Let's just talk about it. Like, can we just talk about the fact that there's some chemistry there? You guys don't have to make out. I mean, it'd be nice. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, right.
But like, it's not required. Can we just acknowledge the fire that's happening here between your two characters or these two? Yeah, it's entertaining. Erica will literally have to. We were catching up on Bridgerton because now that I'm back, she's like, okay, fine, we can finally watch the second half of Bridgerton. And we're watching, and there's these two characters, and she just said, "Why aren't they kissing yet?" And I was just like, "Stop yelling at the TV. She is still married to him. He is not dead. Stop. You've read the books. Watch the TV." She's like, "Kiss, kiss, 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 kiss." She's like,
Amazing.
That's
the
always
most
great.
The most ace person in the house yelling at the TV. Kiss.
Yes. That's always how it happens.
That's how it happens.
But it's true.
Yeah. Our house
So-
is full of dirty jokes.
Yes.
Well, we're all ace. And our house is full of the dirtiest jokes.
Honestly, and this is something that I have come to very much so appreciate. I think the reason why so many people who are ace can make the best dirty jokes is because of the fact that they can remove themselves completely, where it's literally just a joke.
Yes. Correct.
It's just a joke. And if you can't take it, you need to do some work.
When Kit was writing smut with another creator in one of our Discords, I literally couldn't read it. I was like, I can't disconnect.
Ace people write the best smut. It's
I was
true.
like, wow.
Well, especially so I actually
I'm sweating
so
and I can't.
totally,
I just gotta walk away.
I totally forgot
Walk away.
that we had done that until I went back and I read them, and I was just like, wow. For as vague as it is so explicit.
Yeah, and you guys are both on the A spectrum, which is hilarious.
And I think that's why we were able to go bar for bar with each other and just go
you
back
guys.
and
I was
forth
like,
and
oh my god, you're gonna outdo each other every single time.
have to, because it's now a competition to see just how far we can
Just how
go
dirty you
before
can
one of
go.
us is just like, wow, I'm out.
That was too explicit.
Whoa, man. Whew. Okay.
Not my kink. Not my kink.
Either that or it's not my kink, or it's an did I just find my kink?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so funny. All right, y'all. Let's ask the final question.
The final question. I forgot to tell you that we do have a quote unquote surprise question at the end that we end all the episodes with. Yeah, no, we're not
this is a
neurospicy
neurospicy
at
call
all.
right there. It's
Oh,
like
the
we have
echolalia.
to
We had
finish
to
it.
finish it.
It's
We
the
have to
right, yeah.
finish
It's
it.
the echolalia. It's just like, no, we have to
Yep.
do it. Have to. Absolutely have to.
All right, listener, it's time for a bedtime story. I am going to tell you about the patreon.com/queer consciousness podcast Patreon tiers. And we are going to go on a little adventure. The first part of adventure starts at the $5 community support tier. This tier is going to help us pay for things like the podcast feed and the Zoom membership so that we can record. Because we apparently need money in a capitalistic society, and this is how we do this. And your support means the absolute world. As a community support member, you will get access to Kit's blogs for every guest, where I share my thoughts on our conversations that I didn't get to say in the actual conversation. But I have a lot of thoughts, and they are written down, and you can go and read all of them. Once we get to patrons at this level, we are going to add a monthly hangout on Zoom with me and Jess and the other members of the community. And you will also get to watch the video as well as hear a Patreon exclusive chat that we save for after the episode. And you'll get a shout out at the intro for the episode of joining. The next part of our adventure is the producer tier. This is the salary tier. When you sign up for this tier, everything goes straight to Jess to compensate them for the work that they do on the pod. This is one of the next steps in how we can not only support our community, but also be a part of this capitalistic place. Because that's what we have to do. At this level, you will get all of the things from the community support tier, as well at the end of every episode, you will get a credit as a producer, because by supporting this podcast at the producer tier, you are getting a producer credit. And then the next step in our adventure is the $25 patron tier. And this is a investment in not only us as the podcast, but also in our community. That fund will be used to support our queer community as well as members of our podcast community and other endeavors that are voted on by the members of the Patreon. We also have the videos from season 6 that you can watch in the Patreon, and I did a blog post for all of those as well. So you can read those as well as all of the blog posts from season 7. We have a bunch more ideas that we will be posting as we start doing more push goals. So go check it out, and thank you so very much for supporting us. Now, a brief word from our sponsors.
The final question is, knowing what you know now, having lived the life that you have lived, if you could go back to your 21-year-old self and give them one single piece of advice about sex, what would it be?
Wow, that's deep.
Yep.
I don't know. Because I met Vaughn when I was 21.
Ooh.
So
You could go a
I'm
little
very
younger.
much the kind of person
because
where
you just told us you came to terms with being ace at
about
around
20.
that age.
Yes.
So maybe you could go a little younger if it makes more sense.
No,
Okay.
I don't think it would. I don't think I would be a person who would be able to receive that kind of information if I was any younger.
Fair.
But I'm also the kind of person where I think this is just the way my autism works. It's like you give me a time traveling scenario, I have a really hard time putting myself into it because
Butterfly
everything
effect.
I've been through makes me the person that I am now.
Right,
Same way.
exactly.
So going back
Yep.
and giving myself that information, I wouldn't be me
Right.
if I gave myself that
That's why it's a
advice.
hypothetical if.
Yeah, but still, we're going back to the energy is wrong.
Yeah, no, fair. Fair.
I think I would probably just
try and give myself some perspective on purity culture,
Mhm.
about the types of mixed signals that can give you, and try and mitigate some of the guilt that comes along with that. I don't know if there's something like specific that I would say. I think it's too nuanced of a subject to really boil it down to just like one statement. But I think speaking to the guilt of that ideology that I knew I had to walk through and to unpack would probably be the primary thing, because I think at that age and probably for the next few years that's like the primary thing that's on my mind, not only because of sex itself, but also so many levels of still having to unpack my queer identity.
Yeah.
I will always tell people that realizing I was non-binary was easy. Accepting that I was ace and aro was much harder.
Mm-hmm.
Because as like non-binary, I could just exist. It's like, oh, now I have a word to describe what I've always been. Is how it felt.
Yes. Yep.
And unpacking aceness and to an extent aromanticism, but like very specifically my aceness, was a journey where I also had to factor in the relationship that I was starting to develop with Vaughn, because of there being this sexual aspect to it. And my interest in exploring that, but like also the depersonalization of that and the homophobic perspectives that I was taught in church and the purity culture that I was taught in church and all of that just like layering on top of itself into me being a person that is also very, very invested in wanting to be a good person and wanting to do the right thing. It was just such a heavy thing to carry for, I would say, like a period of like 4 to 7 years of my life around that time, that I would want to see what I could tell my younger self to help ease that a little.
Yeah.
Oof.
That was good. Yeah.
I love how
I
you
can
were
do
like,
words sometimes.
I love how you're like, I don't know what I'd say. I probably wouldn't say anything. Well, here's what I would say.
I have to talk through it. I got to talk through it.
Yep.
Same. Yeah, I'm
Have to.
similar.
I have to talk around the question. I'm like, there's not one specific thing, but here is the best that I can do to answer that
No,
question.
it was great. That was really well said.
Yes.
I'm really
for
glad
sure.
that you came on, Allyn. Thank you so much for saying yes to this and being willing to share so much, honestly, vulnerable stuff. And please thank Vaughn for us, because in some ways, Vaughn's willingness to allow you to share them as a part of this story is important, in order to share yours. So please thank him for us as well.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me. I knew it was going to be a big conversation, so I'm happy to have been here. Anytime. You can always have me back.
Fantastic. We will absolutely take you up on that.
Please.
Amazing. Until next time.
This podcast is hosted by me, Kit Sargent, co-hosted and produced by Jess Grace Garcia of Springwood Productions, and the theme music is by Brian Smith of Holy Holy Music Productions. If you could do us a huge favor and please like, follow, comment, share, do all of the things on all of the socials. You could follow the podcast on Instagram @_queer.consciousness for all the latest episodes, as well as any other exciting news. When you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and use the comment box for anything you'd like us to talk about. When you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave a comment and a 5-star rating. If you'd like to be on the podcast, send a message to queerconsciousnesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/queerconsciousnesspodcast. We are trying to grow as organically as possible, and this helps other like-minded people who want to empower and encourage others on their journey. So until next time, remember to stand in your truth and know that you are worthy, just as you are. Hey friend, just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that if you or someone you know is struggling and don't know where to turn, the trained volunteers at the LGBT National Hotline are here to help. Because sometimes the strongest thing to do is to ask for help. The National Hotline phone number is 888-843-4564. And if you want to check out the other things that they have available for them to help you with, you can check out the lgbthotline.org in order to be able to see all of the services that they offer in order to help our community.